The forest was sinking into its winter silence when Aaron swung his axe into the final log of the evening. The sound cracked sharply through the chill air, echoing between the dark pines like a warning. He wiped the frost from his beard and gathered the pieces, ready to retreat into the warmth of his solitary hut. Life as a hermit had hardened him, but it had also taught him to read the forest's mood, and tonight, the forest felt uneasy. Aaron had just stepped onto his creaking porch when a sound froze him mid-stride. A scratch, light, hesitant, but deliberate. No one visited him. Not hunters, not travelers, not even the lost. His hut sat deep in the heart of the woods, tucked behind cliffs and marshes that scared away most people. He held his breath, listening. The scratching came again, slow dragging, almost weak. He reached for his old wooden door, pushing it open just enough to peer out. A gust of icy wind slammed against his chest, carrying the smell of wet pine and snow. But that wasn't what made his heart stutter. Standing less than a meter away was a giant she-wolf. Her fur glimmered silver in the moonlight, matted with clumps of snow. Her chest rose and fell in sharp, tense breaths. Her eyes, wild golden and ancient, locked onto his with a focus that felt almost human. Aaron felt his fingers go numb on the doorframe. Wolves were common in the area, but never this close to humans. And certainly never alone. Then he noticed something clamped gently between her jaws. A small, motionless bundle of dark fur, tiny legs dangling, blood dripping slowly onto the snow in crimson beads. A wolf pup, wounded, barely alive. Aaron's instinct screamed at him to shut the door, to protect himself. A mother wolf was the most dangerous creature in the forest. One wrong move could trigger an attack. But she didn't growl, didn't bare her teeth, didn't lunge. Instead, she took 3 slow steps forward, her paws sinking softly into the snow. She lowered her head, placed the injured pup carefully at his feet, and then backed away again, her tail held low, ears flattened, body trembling with something Aaron had never expected to see in a predator. Desperation. Aaron stared down at the tiny creature gasping weakly on his doorstep, then back at the she-wolf's pleading eyes. For a long, breathless moment, man and beast simply stood there in the moonlit cold, connected by a single unspoken truth. The pup whimpered, a thin, broken sound that cut through the winter air sharper than any blade. Aaron knelt slowly, afraid that any sudden movement might trigger the she-wolf's instincts. His hands hovered uncertainly above the tiny body. Up close, the injury was even worse. The pup's hind leg twisted unnaturally, fur torn away to reveal raw, bleeding flesh. It shivered from pain and cold, its breath shallow and fast. Aaron swallowed hard. Memories he had buried long ago tugged at him. Memories of the injured animals he once treated. Back when he still lived among people. Back when he wasn't a ghost hiding from the world. His heart, accustomed to silence, started to ache. The she-wolf paced in a tight circle, her movements stiff and restless. Every few seconds she paused to look at him, her golden eyes wide with fear. Not fear of him, but fear for the pup. Aaron had seen animals fight, flee, snarl, kill, but he had never seen a wolf plead. Yet that was exactly what she was doing. Every twitch of her ears, every breath steaming from her muzzle, every step she took was a wordless request. Please help him. Aaron lifted the pup gently. The tiny creature let out a faint cry, and immediately the she-wolf surged forward a step. Growling, not in anger but warning. Aaron froze. It's all right, he whispered softly. His voice cracked. It had been days since he last had reason to speak. I won't hurt him. The she-wolf stopped. Her lips lowered. The growl faded into a low, trembling rumble. The sound of a mother, forcing herself to trust a human because she had no other choice left. Aaron pushed open the cabin door wider. Warm air drifted out, the smell of burning pine and dried herbs. The pup needed warmth, shelter, treatment. Without it, he wouldn't last the hour. Aaron hesitated only a moment longer, then stepped inside with the pup, cradled carefully against his chest. He expected the mother to lunge, to fight him for taking her child away. But instead she lowered herself to the ground outside his door. Ears drooping, body collapsing in exhaustion and worry. She did not follow him in, she simply lay there, watching him through the open doorway with eyes full of wild hope. Aaron met her gaze before closing the door to begin his work. Why me? He whispered again into the dim cabin. But deep inside, he already knew the answer. Because sometimes the wild can sense kindness. Even when a man forgets, he still has it. Inside the dim cabin, the fire crackled softly, casting amber light across the rough wooden walls. Aaron laid the injured pup on a folded wool blanket near the hearth. Its tiny chest rose and fell unevenly, each breath sounding like a struggle against the darkness tugging at its fragile body. Aaron's hands shook as he reached for his small wooden box of herbs and salves. He hadn't opened it in years. Dust clung to the lid, as though time itself had sealed away the part of him that once healed instead of hid. Tonight that part had been awakened by a creature of the wild. He cleaned the wound carefully with warm water, washing away the dried blood. The pup whimpered, a soft, pitiful sound that pierced the quiet. Aaron paused each time, murmuring gentle words he didn't even realize were still in him. "It's all right, little one. I'm here. Stay with me." Outside, the wind howled through the trees, but beneath it, he could hear something else. A heavier, rhythmic breathing. The she-wolf. She hadn't moved from the doorstep. It was as if she had anchored her entire world outside his home, refusing to leave until her child was safe. Aaron continued working. He rubbed crushed comfrey leaves into the wound to soothe the pain, then inspected the twisted leg. A clean break, but severe. The pup whimpered again as he tested the bone. Aaron clenched his jaw. "This will hurt," he whispered, more to himself than to the unconscious pup. With steady hands, he pulled the limb gently, aligning the bone as best as he could. The pup cried out weakly on a sound so sharp that Aaron felt it in his chest like a knife. When the bone finally slid back into place, the pup's breathing eased and its tiny body relaxed. Aaron wrapped the leg with linen strips, securing it tightly. Then he bundled the pup in the warm blanket and carried it closer to the fire. He brushed a finger across its head, feeling the faint pulse of life beneath the soft fur. Exhausted, he stepped to the door and opened it a crack. The she-wolf stood instantly, snowflakes clinging to her coat. Her eyes searched his face with desperate intensity. Aaron shook his head softly. "He's alive," he said, "and he'll mend, if the forest allows it." The she-wolf didn't respond with a growl or howl. Instead, she dipped her head, and not in submission, but in a gesture of pure primal gratitude. Aaron had lived in solitude for years, believing the world had forgotten him. But tonight, under the watchful eyes of a wild mother, he realized something startling. The forest hadn't forgotten him at all. The days blended quietly into one another, each one marked by the slow healing of the pup and the silent presence of the she-wolf. Aaron had grown used to the pattern. He'd wake to the soft creak of the floorboards, check the pup's leg, brew herbal tea for himself, and then open the cabin door. Every morning, without fail, the she-wolf was there, sometimes curled in the frost-kissed grass, sometimes sitting tall and alert, sometimes pacing anxiously, but always there, a shadow of loyalty carved against the snowy landscape. One dawn, when Aaron stepped outside, he found something unexpected lying on his porch, a freshly killed rabbit. Its fur was still warm, its neck neatly broken. Aaron looked at the she-wolf, who stood a few paces away, her tail raised slightly. A gift, a thank you, a mother's offering. He bent down, picked it up, and gave her a quiet nod. She dipped her head in return before retreating back into the tree line. More offerings followed. A pheasant, a squirrel, even a slab of deer meat. Aaron didn't always take them, but he never ignored them. Each gift was a silent message. I trust you. I see what you're doing for my child. Inside the hut, the pup was healing. Its breaths grew stronger, its eyes brighter. Some days it even managed to tail wag. Aaron talked to it often. Simple things, small memories, fragments of a life he had long thought buried. You're a fighter, he would say as he changed the bandages. Just like your mother out there. But the forest itself had begun to change. Aaron felt watched, not with danger but with curiosity. When he fetched water from the frozen stream, he sometimes caught a flash of movement between the trees, the silhouette of another wolf. Then another, and another. The pack. They stayed hidden just out of sight, but close enough to let him know they were there, protecting, observing, learning. That the human by the old cabin was not an enemy. At night, their distant howls rolled through the dark like echoes of an ancient song. Instead of fear, Aaron felt something else stir inside him. Connection, perhaps, or a sense of belonging he thought he had lost forever. The she-wolf no longer paced nervously when he stepped outside. She stood beside the door, tail low, head lifted proudly, a queen guarding her realm. And in a strange, unexpected way, Aaron realized he was part of that realm now. The hermit who once hid from the world had become a small but important thread in the forest's great, silent tapestry. A man kept company by wolves. The morning the pup took its first real steps, the world seemed unusually still. Frost clung to the window like delicate lace, and the air held a quietness that felt expectant, as if the forest itself waited for what would happen next. Aaron knelt on the cabin floor, holding his breath as the pup wobbled upright. Its tiny legs trembled, the healed one wrapped in a lighter bandage now. For a heartbeat, the pup stood frozen, as if unsure of its new strength. Then, with a determined whine, it took a step, then another. A laugh, warm and genuine, escaped Aaron before he could stop it. "You did it," he whispered, voice thick. "Strong little fellow." The pup barked weakly, tail wagging before limping toward the door. Aaron lifted the latch. He didn't need to call out, the she-wolf was already there. She rose from her position beneath the tall pine, her eyes instantly locking on the pup. The moment her child stumbled out onto the porch, she rushed forward, nudging him gently, sniffing at his healed leg, circling him in frantic, loving bursts. Aaron watched from the doorway, his heart unexpectedly heavy. He knew this moment was coming. Healing meant parting him, and that was always the rule of the wild. The pup yipped excitedly, hopping around its mother, eager to show her its new strength. The she-wolf lifted her head then, turning to face Aaron. Her gaze was calm now, no fear. No desperation, only the fierce, unwavering pride of a mother whose child had been saved. Aaron stepped down from the porch. The snow crunched softly under his boots. He knelt so he wouldn't tower over them. The pup limped toward him one last time, brushing its small head against his hand. Aaron stroked its fur gently, memorizing the moment. "You belong with your own kind," he murmured. "Go on now." The she-wolf approached. Instead of pulling the pup away, she leaned forward until her cold nose touched Aaron's open palm. The gesture was brief, but it carried the weight of something ancient. A blessing, a farewell, a promise that some bonds don't fade even when paths divide. Then with a final glance, she turned and guided her pup into the forest. Aaron stood alone in the clearing as the silhouette slipped between the trees, swallowed by the shifting shadows. But he didn't feel abandoned. For the first time in years, he felt connected. That night, when the wind carried the wolves' howls across the mountains, Aaron didn't hear loneliness in their song. He heard gratitude, recognition, a reminder that somewhere, in the dark wild heart of the forest, he was remembered.